should say Bogota, Colombia. Who, anybody else here? Just give me a say hi and maybe just give me an idea where you are. Maybe city and country, city for the most part. Wait, don't be shy. We got a shy group tonight. What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah, they're shy.
Okay. Okay, Bogota, I got you. There you go. Welcome, Miss Adriana. Super. Diana, nice to see you again. Wow, it's been a while. Excellent. Okay, 1 second. Let me check one thing here with the other camera to see what's going on before we get situated. Excellent, from Cali. Nice to see you. Yeah. Okay. Kata, if you want to try now, give it a shot and see what's going on. Maybe
Good
get out and
afternoon.
come back in. Hello.
Hello, I'm from Cali.
Okay. Hello there, my dear, from Cali. Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, I got Laura Isabel from Bogota. Okay. Super, awesome. I got Bucaramanga, got Cali, there's Bogota. Okay, Machala, Ecuador. Okay, Mr. Felix, welcome, buddy. Hello there, my dear. How are you? Super. Okay. See, I see lots of us. We're getting situated here. Catalina's checking a few things. Okay, from Magdalena. Awesome. Welcome, welcome, my dear. Super. Arakataka. Did I pronounce that correctly? Arakataka? Yeah. Did I say that right? Okay. Yes. I'm learning. Yeah. Well, Bogota made Bogota my home these last 2 decades. However, I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina. So I've been here for some time now, but I still have a few issues, I should say, pronouncing some of the cities, some of the towns, and some of the places throughout, I should say, Central South America in that particular instance. Okay, cool. Well, let's see what we got going on. Well, while Catalina's getting situated, I'm going in and just go ahead and get situated and get us some ideas about what we got going on. So I got the hottest town is Barranca Bermeja, Mr. Gustavo Granada. Nice to see you again, my friend. Hope all is well. Yes, it is very hot there. Very hot.
Nice to see you too, Jermaine. A real pleasure
Likewise.
to
Yeah.
keep working, to keep practicing, keep learning.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Okay.
Here I am, Jermaine. Everything
There we
done.
go. There we go. Awesome,
Yeah,
my dear. Awesome. So I see Catalina's here. She's got her camera on. She's all activated. Without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and get situated for us today. Yeah. I just want to welcome each and every one of you to our, I should say, webinar series, or we had initially said Facebook Live, sponsored by the Master's Program in English Language Teaching for Autonomous Learning Environments, as well as the Master's in English Language Teaching for Self-Directed Learning. Well, get ready because we're going to be providing you with, I should say, about 10 more sessions, Facebook/webinars over the next few weeks. That way you'll get an opportunity to interact with each and every one of our professors and also colleagues throughout the region. Okay, so be on the lookout for next week's sessions. All sessions will be on Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Okay, Colombian time. These spaces have been designed for you, so please do not hesitate to ask questions. Interact with all of us while sharing your experiences as well. Okay, remember, just to, if you have questions or comments in order to help us with the organization and logistics for today, I would ask if you would post your questions inside the chat box. Okay, that way we can pull them out and we can respond to them either during the talk or right after, because we're going to have 30 minutes for that. Okay. Another tip for those of us who are not speaking, if you would be so kind as to mute your microphones, because once again, we can hear the additional chatter, we can hear some of the feedback and some of the other crazy things that are going on in that particular instance. Okay. Well, once the session is complete, We will be updating it through our Unisabana ELT fan page, as well as on the website, along with a document outlining the questions and practical answers discussed here in the session today. Okay, so really, we do hope that you will enjoy this experience. All right. And so without further ado, well, please allow me to introduce, I guess, our speakers for tonight. I will be the host. I'm not going to be doing much tonight, but I'm the host per se, the moderator, if you want to call it like that. And so I'm just going to be going through and walking through tonight's session. So what do we have until for tonight? What does it mean to be an autonomous learner? It's going to be delivered by Professor Catalina Caro, who teaches at the moment autonomous learning environments in the master's program. She's also the co-director of the COL research area in that particular instance. And you know me already, Jermaine McDougall, the director of the program. And I also teach research. I teach content and language. I'm also the editor of the CLIL Journal. And once again, I direct and organize lots of activities related to the CLIL research area. Yeah, both of us are faculty members and experienced teacher trainers from the Department of Foreign Languages and Cultures, Universidad de la Sabana, here in the beautiful country of Colombia. Okay, so what are we going to be doing now here? Give you some ideas. We know each other already so far, so I'm just giving you some ideas. We're not going to go into, I should say, the works about who we are in that particular instance, because time is of the essence. Okay, time is of the essence, and we wanted to make sure that we all had an opportunity to speak and interact and do a few things as well. I am just here giving you some ideas about the biodata in case you would like to know a bit more about the speakers and the moderators for tonight, in that particular instance, etc. Okay. What else can I say? Catalina, would you like to say hi and say a few things before we actually get started with our interaction for tonight?
Sure. Thank you so much for that introduction. It's a pleasure for me to be here telling you a little bit about what we currently are working in the master's programs that the department offers. And well, I just want to say hello and thanks for joining us today. This is a very interesting topic in which I'm getting very passionate from a long time ago, since I was a student in the master's program, and now that I'm able to work as a professor.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Catalina. Give you some ideas about the dynamics. Basically, it's a conversation. I'm going to be asking Catalina quite a few questions in terms of the topic tonight. And the topic tonight is, what does it mean to be an autonomous learner? And we'll also be talking about autonomous learning environments. As you know, many of us as teachers, professionals, and practitioners, many of us sometimes we are not autonomous ourselves. We claim we want our students to be. We push that our students are, or we should not push, but we complain that our students are not. Why? Because, well, there are so many things that are missing as to us really understanding what it means to be autonomous ourselves. What does it mean to have an autonomous learner, and what does it mean to actually have autonomous learning environment? Okay, I'm going to have a really quick conversation with Catalina. She's going to give us some ideas. Once again, I would really appreciate if you would be able to mute your microphones. For those of us who just joined the session, remember to mute your microphones. Okay, mute your microphones. That way we don't have as much interference in the conversation that we're going to have tonight. Okay, thank you so much. For those of us who are just joining us, my name is Jermaine McDougall. This is Catalina Caro, and we're going to be working with you tonight around surrounding the topic about autonomous learning environments. So, Catalina, give me some ideas. What does it mean to be an autonomous learner? Because, as you know, we hear this a lot. My students are not autonomous. My students are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Give me some ideas. What does it mean to be that autonomous learner?
Well, being autonomous in general and simple terms is about making decisions. Making decisions now in terms of learning, it means being an autonomous learner is making decisions about, in the field of education, what I want to learn, making decisions on how I want to learn what I want to learn, making decisions on when I want to learn it, having clear the purpose of why I want to learn this that I want to learn. So basically, this is everything that involves making decisions about learning. As you have mentioned, Jermaine, there are many misconceptions and myths around being autonomous and around being an autonomous learner. Because in the experience that I have had in the master's and exploring on students' conceptions about being autonomous, first of all, we find that we, or pre-service teachers, always think that this is something that is very, very impossible to be developed in our students and in fact in ourselves, because our culture is not used to be that autonomous or to enhance that autonomy that we are talking about. There is, for example, one misconception, which is thinking that being an autonomous learner or being autonomous means to work alone, means to work by myself.
Okay.
And this is something that is kind of wrong, because autonomy has also a perspective that is social. And I have some abilities that I can do by myself, but if we think about learning, and if we think about building knowledge, and if we think about developing skills, there is much that people, our colleagues, our classmates, and people around us do to help me reading. There is much that teachers can do to guide their learners on how to be autonomous and how to learn. And this is part of what learning is. And as we know, learning is social. So being autonomous learning doesn't mean to be just an individual, to do just an individual process. It means also to be in a social environment in which I interact and I build knowledge together with my classmates. It involves behaviors that are social, socializing, communicating, interacting. It involves also those skills that, as we know, being autonomous, making decisions about, for example, my behavior, in this case, my behavior as a learner, can contribute, but can also affect others. So that's also part of the component of why it is social.
Okay. No, thank you so much. For those of us who just joined us, we're just getting started with the first question, actually. And I was just asking Professor Catalina Caro, what does it mean to be autonomous? Just as a quick summary, she told us, she gave us some ideas about, it's about decisions regarding what? Your own learning, what to learn, how to learn, and when to learn it. These are things that, once again, we need to foster in our students. These are areas and opportunities that we need to work with our students in that particular instance, so that they can actually get there in that instance. She also talks about being autonomous. It does not necessarily mean being alone. Yeah, working by yourself. I get that a lot. Sometimes they say, well, I give them, I give them work, independent work, because they should be autonomous. They should be working by themselves. What's going on? Why can't they do it? Well, because it doesn't correspond to just working by myself in a corner. Yeah, it corresponds to doing other things. Autonomy, once again, as she just said, she just told us, corresponds to a very important social component, you see, in that particular instance. So like I said, again, these are some ideas, these are some misconceptions, I would say, Catalina, that many of us has as practitioners, teachers inside the classroom, regardless of, I should say, our age levels, or even the educational levels in which we are teaching. Because once again, someone in high school, or I should say in university settings, or in preschool or primary, the question has always remained the same: why are we autonomous? I just want to remind you guys, just in case, instead of raising your hands, you should, and just yet, we're going to have our hands raised at towards the end in about another 10 or 15 minutes. But if you have a question, be sure to post the questions inside the chat box so that we can respond to those questions in a few minutes. Okay. So moving on to my next question, Catalina, what do you think? What does control have to do with autonomy? Because once again, control, like I said, it's connected one way or the other. But how do they all work together in terms of control, autonomy, me having control, my students or my learners having control? What does that mean? Can you give us some ideas and elaborate a bit more?
Sure. Well, to answer these questions, I would like to make you reflect a little bit upon the duties that we as teachers have in the real work every day. We are in charge of many things, but being in charge of many things doesn't mean to control. So I really want to go deep to this concept, if we can call it like that, because controlling means that everything is controlled by you, everything is, much things are done by you. We have many duties as teachers. We plan classes. For some teachers, for some teachers, based on depending on the context and the institution they work at, they are in charge of creating the curriculum. in some other institutions, they are given the curriculum. So it means that teachers are also in charge of setting the goals, the learning goals, the teaching goals that they want to be achieved in the course or achieved in the school year. They are in charge of setting perhaps the topics. They are in charge of, or we are in charge of choosing the materials, choosing the book or choosing the platform that we want to work on. We are in charge of selecting those topics that we want to work with our students. Of course, because this is a very polemic topic that is about assessment. We teachers are in charge and we control everything about assessment, how we assess our students, when we assess our students, what is the schedule that we are going to work on in our courses. We control moments in which our students can interact. For example, we are the one who say when each student has to participate. In fact, we control sometimes the classroom arrangement. In this moment that we are in virtual classes, perhaps that's not that evident. But when we have the setting in the classroom, sometimes we choose when each student had to sit down, you know? So that classroom arrangement is also something that we control. And now that we are talking about control, I would talk about control like versus autonomy, because I dare to mention that control is kind of the opposite, I would say. It's kind of the opposite of an environment in which autonomy is enhanced. The more that I control, the less autonomy that I am fostering. The more autonomy I'm fostering, the less that I am controlling in terms of many situations. You may be thinking like, but how can a student decide on make decisions on many things? Yeah, perhaps depending on the levels of autonomy we are developing, our students can be able of deciding on what are their learning goals, what are the instruments they want to be used, or the ways in which they want to be assessed, evaluated, in which they want to monitor how they are learning. So those are like the aspects in which they can make some decisions. And sometimes this is surprising for us, isn't it, Jermaine, to think about control and say, yeah, control is part of our lives, isn't it?
It is. We as human beings, we are accustomed to, or we are in the human nature, we are like to be in control. But to elaborate just a little bit more, Catalina, I don't know, could you maybe give us an example about, for example, the issue between control and autonomy inside in a classroom, for example, per se? How would that work?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean leave all the control to the student, because as you mentioned before, sometimes the question is about, but okay, look at the age of my students. It depends on the age of your students. And enhancing autonomy doesn't mean that you are not guiding the process. You know, you can provide some guidance, but learners can provide the topic they want to do. For example, you want to work on a project, and you will ask your students to propose a topic. You will ask your students to set the goal that they want to achieve through the project. Perhaps it might be a project that about a topic they are interested on, based on their interests, based on their needs. So they are deciding on what is going to be the topic, and perhaps they want to decide how many times do they want to be assessed, or how they want to be assessed, how they want to evaluate the process or their learning. You can provide possibilities, of course. Students are not educators, and perhaps they don't know about assessment instruments or ways in which they can be assessed. You can provide options, but they are the ones who make the decisions, you know?
Okay. No, totally. I see some ideas here. A couple of things in the chat box just to give you some ideas before we go to our next question. But yeah, some good topics is that I like the idea Judith mentions about sharing control. Sure, we do. Something that we have to learn. Also, we talk about autonomous learning implies sharing control on different bases. We also talk about knowing what to do and how to do it and when to do it. Once again, like Catalina says, with our students, they need to know. Most of the times, our students are left in the dark. Yeah, but we assume and we think that they know everything, and they don't. They're left in the dark, but we need to really give them ideas on how to get things done. And also, Diana Onivio, she talks about assessment shouldn't be only considered a teacher's role. Once again, we can give some of that control to the students in order for them to have a balance inside the class, you see. So these are just some of the ideas that we've already put inside the chat box. And I've got Judith all talking about clear objectives, learning objectives. Totally. I like I said again, all of these things right here correspond to helping us maintain a balance, okay, inside the classrooms related to autonomy and control, so that once again, we can foster, I should say foster, much more autonomous learning environments, in that particular instance. My next question, so that brings us right to our very next question in that particular instance. What do you think is how to foster, I should say, autonomous learning environments? Because we were talking about what is autonomy, what is the autonomous learner, okay? Now, what about the environments? What can you give us in that particular instance, Catalina?
Well, when we talk about environments, we talk about let's say, the main actors in the environment, the learning environment, which are learners, of course, the teachers, the professors, and the environment as such, and the actions that are, let's say, that take place in this environment. So from all the perspectives, if we want to go first to the perspective of the teacher, we need to think about the role. When we talk about autonomous learning environments, we think about a role in which the teacher is kind of not teaching anymore. It's a person who guides the process. It's not the person who is in charge of transmitting knowledge, who is in charge of making students know, but who is in charge of guiding his or her learners in the process of learning and acquiring knowledge and develop skills, you know. So from that perspective, this is a kind of change of mindset in which the role is not teaching, if we can say that, if you understand what I mean, which is you are not transferring now knowledge. We are now guiding and helping learners find the knowledge by themselves, you know. So part of that, and part of the component of being in an autonomous learning, Jermaine, it's one is the role of the teacher, and also the role of the student. Let's say that is the role of the student, in which how can we guide then our learner to be part of an autonomous learning environment. And for us, there's something that is a must, which is getting to know our learners. An autonomous learning environment characterizes because it is student-centered. And being at a student-centered means and involves getting to know genuinely our students, getting to know what are their interests, what is that they have in their minds, what are their learning styles, what are their needs. But I'm not talking only about their learning needs. I'm talking about getting to know our learners in terms of the context they live, in terms of their family context, everything that is around the student, so that we can really understand what is the reality and what is the circumstances the student is under, so that learning really takes place in a meaningful way. So getting to know feelings, getting to know the emotions of their students, how they handle them, that's pretty important in an autonomous learning environment. And in terms of the abilities, if you want to say that an autonomous learning environment is characterized by in which we are developing abilities or competences in terms of leadership, for example, because if it is a student-centered, we are giving the student the chance to be a leader, to propose, to express ideas, to express opinions, to communicate. We are giving the chance to our learners to reflect upon their process, to reflect upon issues, to reflect upon certain topics and give their opinions about that. So that's part of what an autonomous learning environment involves. And of course, providing the chance for students to, as I mentioned before, to make decisions, to select in the options that are what makes sense for them, because sometimes that's what happens, and sometimes that's why they are not motivated with learning, because they are just doing what they are asked to do, but not what they have decided to do.
Okay. All right.
Perhaps the last part that I want to mention is about the possible teachers actions, and I am bringing in my words, simple words, and something that is like helpful for everybody to find connections with your own classrooms. So I'm not bringing too much theory right now, which is perhaps the theory that we analyze in the courses in the masters to get in to these conclusions. And this is a perspective for the possible actions we can do in the classroom to become our classroom even more autonomous. And this is getting to know our students before involves also that I really listen to them. Not only when they are participating, but that I listen to them in terms of the things they want to say, the things they want to express about their lives, their stories, to their experiences, to the knowledge that they have because of life, and that I'm able, as in my role of guider, to learn also from them. So they get in a different role in the classroom because they are the center and they are also able to teach us many things. This week, for example, I learned a lot about video games. I didn't know anything about video games, and that was the topic that we had in class this week. And I learned a lot about many games that they play, how they interact. That is one that is in fashion right now, and I didn't know about that. I just guide them to talk in the different activities for them to talk, to discuss, to give ideas and give examples and give their experiences, bring them to class. And perhaps they learned English, they practiced, but I was the one who learned about video games, you know. So that was part of the experience. And some other actions that we can talk about for a teacher in an autonomous learning environment is also about motivating. We talk about this motivation that is extrinsic and that is part of our responsibility. I tell my colleagues and my pre-service students, that students, that we have this responsibility. Sometimes we think that the student is the one who has to motivate himself. I don't know. If he's not motivated, look for the solution, or figure out how to solve it. But in fact, we have this responsibility of motivating them, and sometimes a responsibility to guide them on how to find their intrinsic motivation, because sometimes that's what is lost. So in this motivation, what can we do in terms of the actions in the classroom? Use positive language to provide feedback, written feedback in positive. First, the positive comments, and after that, the aspects that perhaps we want them to improve. Praise the student, rewarding our students, and using encouraging words. And for this, I want to mention in terms of individual achievements, because sometimes the achievement that we have, the goal that we have, is achieved in a different level in every one of our students. So every single student is a different world. And for one of our students, an achievement is going from, I'm talking about grade, going from always having one in an assignment, and now he has advanced because now he has 3, but we find the frustrated student that he's having 4.8 and he's frustrated, you know. So achievement is also very subjective for everybody, and it is subjective for our students, and levels of achievement are also something that we need to have like a different point of view in order to be able to congratulate the one that got a 3 over 5.
I got some ideas. I got a couple of ideas here going on inside the text box. So give me a few seconds. Let me throw some out there before we go to our last question. If you remember to please mute your microphones, please. That would be great. Your microphones, because we're having some feedback here. If you could, I don't know who has their Alejandro, I think it is. Microphone on. Thank you so much. I'll give you some ideas. Like I said again, what Catalina was saying, there are lots of things going on. I'm not sure if we continue. I forgot someone was a microphone.
Excuse me, Jeremy, could you organize your audio? It's sound interference. And a
No, it's not mine. It's somebody else has their. Two people have their microphones on, and the only way we can progress is if we put our microphones on mute. Thank you so much. Excellent. Very good. All right. Wow. Yeah. So, give me some ideas. Just to. So I still have a couple of microphones on. Microphones. It's okay. Sorry about that. Since we're all working together, we have more than 70 people here, so it's yeah. Microphones. Thank you so much. Just mute your microphone if you want to talk in a few minutes. I will give you the opportunity to talk just for a few minutes. All right. Give you some ideas. Catalina brought up a lot of good points in terms of what was, I should say, autonomous learning environments and things of that nature, how to foster autonomous learning environments. I picked up a few things in the chat box that talked about maybe teaching or not teaching. The goal here is to have a balance between providing control and autonomy. But aside from that, we need to teach. Good teaching, ourselves understanding who we are as individuals, as being autonomous, being self-directed. In that particular instance, we can get a lot more done. Providing clear instructions for our students, because most of the times our students don't know what to do. Our students are very dependent on us, and so the goal is make them, you know, not so dependent on me. I also saw something in the chat box responding to maybe preschoolers. They can't. Maybe young adults, they can. All of us can be autonomous. I just saw a good example, I think it was by Gina, mentioned that how when she works stations inside the classrooms, the 4 stations, or I suppose 4, or even more, the students in preschool, they know what to do when they go to each one of the stations. That's by developing, organizing, I should say, autonomy from a very young age. I can also have autonomy at an older age when we're working in groups. How to negotiate, organize, and work within groups. What happens with groups? Well, they don't know what to do. We can assign roles, we can assign responsibilities, we can assign tasks, and we have clear objectives, and we have a time in order to organize ourselves in terms of that autonomous learning environment. I think someone still has their audio on. I do apologize. So I don't know if somebody could maybe mute their microphones, please. Please mute the microphones. Gosh, yeah, and so yeah, I'm headed there right now. But I just, as a common courtesy, I would just, you know, I'm headed there right now. Thank you so much, Felipe. But in that particular instance, like I said again, these are some examples. Katia, can you help me? These are some examples in that particular instance, in terms of what do we got going on in terms of autonomous learning environments. Okay, I know there was some discussion there. So in a few minutes, I think I have 2 questions that I found. We're going to ask them. We're going to respond to them in just 2 minutes. And I'm going to move on to the last question that we have for tonight, so that we can open up the floor so we can talk a bit more, because I'm sure you guys have lots of questions and things of that nature. And yes, at the end, I see there are lots of myths, and give me 1 second here. Oh boy, gotcha. Who's talking? Gotcha. No. Okay, gotcha. So, Catalina, if you don't mind, if you maybe can give me 1 second. Mute all. Gotcha. Silence. So everyone's quiet now. Thank you so much. I tried to get you guys to talk, but it didn't work. But well, I mute everyone, so here we are. What other concepts, in order to finish up our conversation for tonight, Catalina, what other concepts do we have that correspond to, that are related to autonomous, I should say, fosterage, that correspond to, I should say, fostering autonomy inside the classroom? Can you give us some ideas?
Yeah, well, in fact, Jermaine, there are many concepts. I want to emphasize
Just a
today
few,
just
just
on
a couple.
4 of them. Yeah, on 4 of them, because there are many concepts that are related to autonomy, and based on the ideas that I have given, you can also figure out some of them, which are very connected in terms of theory, let's say, of what has research found out about the connection of autonomy in the classrooms. One of them, for example, is self-efficacy. This concept is related to the, let's say, the self-concept that a student has about his own abilities to do certain tasks. So it has a lot to do with the concept, the self-concept the student has. Sometimes we find the students who are really frustrated about, for example, learning English, because they had very negative previous experiences, so they think they are not good at it. And that's something that it is very connected also to developing autonomy in the student, you know. Another concept is motivation. We talked a little bit about that, which can be extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation, which is the motivation that can come from external elements or situations, materials. The class itself can be a motivator. Everything that comes from out, and the intrinsic one, which is everything that comes from inside out. which means the interest that the student has for learning, the motivation, the purpose that they find in terms of learning. And that was something that I didn't mention before, which is that sometimes in the classes we need to figure out how to directly, or let's say, expand on the purposes of learning, which is also connected to one of the next concepts, which is metacognition. Sometimes we need to explain learners what the activity is for, because they get tired of just following instructions, but sometimes they don't find the point of an exercise, they don't find the point of a task. So it is important to let them know explicitly, that's the word, explicitly, what the task is about, what is the purpose, how are they going to advance with this task they are doing, why are they going to discover with the task they are doing, how these tasks that we are proposing will help them somehow to learn, to improve, to advance, to progress in terms of their learning. The next concept that I just told you was about metacognition, which is also inviting them to know and to learn about their own learning. It has a lot to do with cognition, with the development of cognitive skills. Doesn't matter we are teaching English, we are fostering skills for life. And autonomy is one of those. This is applicable for any subject, for teaching any subject. But this is something that we can do. Sometimes teachers think that developing autonomy is even harder, like, okay, I have enough with teaching maths, or I have enough with teaching English, so I don't want to involve teaching autonomy, which is, as we mentioned before, these strategies and this talk is to invite you to know and to learn that fostering autonomy is part, in fact, of our classes. Sometimes it is implicitly there, but we are doing it when we involve our students on making decisions and participating. And the last concept is cooperation and collaboration, which is going back to what I mentioned at the very beginning, which is that being an autonomous learner doesn't mean to be an alone individual in the world, but it means to socialize, it means to cooperate, it means to collaborate, and everything that has to do with developing cooperative or collaborative learning in the classroom has to do with developing autonomy, developing leadership, developing skills for communicating, developing skills for developing language for communicating, for negotiating ideas, for finding agreements. You know, all that is involved in any of our classes, and it is very connected to an environment in which autonomy is fostered.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. So with that in mind, thank you so much. I'm not going to say much now. I'm just going to go ahead and open up the floor for questions and comments, as we have about 20-25 minutes left here. I've got the first question, Cata. It says, Jose Eduardo says, how do we scaffold autonomy? And I have a few other questions that I've been collecting along the way while you're tending to him. Some ideas about how we could scaffold autonomy. Thank you.
Okay, well, to foster autonomy, we also need to make decisions on the first part. Before making decisions, we need to really analyze the context in which our learners are. Because we can find that in the context that we are perhaps we implicitly are developing some autonomous skills in the classroom. And based on that, I need to know, first of all, what is my context and what is the situation in which my students are in terms of the level of autonomy they are. And based on that, I need to make decisions on how can I take them to a higher level, how can I take them progress. And as you mentioned, that is a word very, very interesting and very appealing for the situation. It is scaffolding, which means that you cannot start proposing activities or involving situations in which your students need to be autonomous from one day to the other. This needs to be scaffolded. This needs to be progressive, you know. But in terms of the how, based on your question, perhaps I cannot tell you the magical method. There are many methods that have been proposed. But what I can tell you is that, first of all, we need to analyze how the context is, how it works, how are our learners. What are their behaviors in terms of autonomy? Are they more dependent than autonomous? And depends on that, you can start scaffolding the process of being autonomous. Of course, progressively, you can start involving actions as the ones that we mentioned in the previous question in your classroom to start progressing in terms of the teacher's actions in the classroom and start analyzing your students' behavior in order to make decisions on how to start scaffolding the process, depending on the level of autonomy they are, their ages. And
thank you so much, Kata. I've got a hand up, and I promise I will let you guys say hi for a few minutes. So, Flor Maria, I'm not sure if you're testing your technology or if you wanted to say hi and ask a question really fast, because I have three other questions that are en route. Talk to us. Activate your microphone, and then you should be able to actually start talking.
Now is the time to activate the microphone.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, gotcha.
Catherine. How can we apply this kind of process at fosterage in public schools when we have a classroom for more than 40 or 45 students?
Okay,
thanks
so
for the question. I love that you asked this question, Flor Maria. Thank you for the question, because you know, sometimes we think that because we have many students in the classroom, we cannot do things. And in fact, big classrooms are the ones that perhaps help us do many things. In the classroom, you can arrange different patterns of interaction as you're used to work in pairs, after that working groups. And when they interact, sometimes they find they find more confident on interacting with their partners when they are in small groups. So sometimes it helps. If you think about a group in which there are a group of 6 students and a group of 40 students, they can interact, they can make decisions. You can ask them, for example, in terms of collaboration or cooperation, depending on what you want to work, arrange them in groups. They can build knowledge. They can bring research from topics to class for them to develop the topic and work in groups through projects. Give them different roles that they can perform in their teams. Find that they have to achieve a product and ask them what the product is going to be. Ask students at the very beginning of the course of the year what are their interests, so that you know how to plan your classes involving the interests of your students. It doesn't matter if they are 40. If they are 4, you have many possibilities and many options to let them choose on what to do. In terms of motivation, in terms of feedback, you can start working with peer feedback, so that in groups they can give feedback to each other depending on the assignment that you're asking them to do, so they can interact and they can do beautiful things in big groups. It is not a restriction. Having a big group is not a restriction for developing autonomous skills.
Okay, thank you so much. I've got 2 or 3 other questions here. I can get somewhere prior before. This one here says, for example, Catalina, the question is, how can we foster our learners to develop their own, I should say, autonomous learning skills? This is a question that was asked about 20 minutes ago. I'm just kind of zooming through to find something.
Well, as I previously told you, from the actions that you execute in the classroom, you can start helping them do it. Or fostering their own skills. And I find routines as a very effective way, more for the little kids, in which you can ask them to do things. And routines are perfect for that. Ask them to tell you how they did the processes. You can involve them in explaining how they did certain process. Sometimes we ask them to achieve goals and to have a product, an outcome, a learning outcome, a product, something that they can show us, but sometimes we don't ask them how did they do it and why did they select that color to do the task, why that, if they like it, if that was important for them. So in terms of that, there are many, let's say there are many possibilities on how to encourage autonomy in their classrooms, but it also, as I told you before, it depends on the ages of the students. So if you really know how your students learn, if you really know what are their interests, if you really know how do they learn, you can guide them in ways in which they can learn meaningfully and enjoy learning.
Okay, thank you so much. I got two more questions here. I've got a couple here. Before I go there, Judith has asked a couple times, what do you think is the connection between, say, autonomous learning and self-constructivism? Any ideas there? It says
Jeremy, could you
here,
repeat that question, please?
I have it right here in the text box. So what do you think is the connection between autonomous learning and social constructivism?
And social constructivism, well, I
Any
think
ideas
there's
there?
a lot of, yeah, the connection is, there is a direct connection. As I told you before, if we just think about the concept of autonomy, autonomy is a concept that involves lots of social actions. And there is lots of what in terms of the society we build. If we are not talking about autonomy in terms of the educational field, but in terms of being a citizen, we know that the actions that we execute or the actions that we do, they have an impact on others. And as you mentioned,
Still there? Oops. Seems like I lost you for a few seconds. Go ahead.
excuse me,
I lost you for a
are
second.
you
Continue.
listening to me?
Yes. Yes. Continue.
Okay, and that is what I mentioned before, was that I find a direct connection between this social constructivism. We construct together, we build together knowledge, we build together collaborating, and it's something that right now, in terms of the circumstances we live in the world, it is in fashion, because now we are learning to cooperate. We are learning to collaborate, to build together, to build knowledge, to build opportunities to help the society, you know? So definitely there is a direct connection between autonomy and social constructivism.
Okay. Another question here that came up. Thank you so much, Catalina. Do you think it's a good way to keep our students motivated to be autonomous? One second. I'm just trying to understand the question here. Okay. Do you think a good way in helping our students to become autonomous is by teaching them practical skills and practical things in life?
Thank you so much for the question. Yes. My answer is yes. Definitely being autonomous is a long life learning process, right? But it's also something that is for life and is applicable for everything. So helping students and making learning meaningful and practical for them, it has a lot to do with being autonomous. It has a lot to do with, for our students to find meaningful learning, to find practical things, to find how to apply things for the real life. So meaningful learning has lots to do with developing autonomous environments.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right.
It does. It's a great idea.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So that's what I have for now. I'm not sure if there are some other questions. Flor Maria, did you want to say something else again? I saw your hand go up again. Sure, go for it.
No, Jermaine, thank you very much. I
Okay, thank
really
you so much.
appreciate the sponsor
Okay,
concept.
awesome. Thank you so much. So as you see, we're coming towards the end of our little, I should say, mini talk for this afternoon, this evening. Can't even talk anymore. Coming to an end. I'm not sure if we have any other questions or comments related to the topic at hand. The topic basically was, what is an autonomous learning environment? And as you can see, we summed up, and Catalina did an excellent job providing us with many different insights. The chat box was filled with examples. Thank you very much for all of us who were participating actively in the chat box. We were talking about many different types of activities from preschool to primary, secondary students as well. I have another question that just came in from Alejandro. It says, how can virtual education from a peer educator promote the aforementioned skills? Can you see in the chat box, Catalina?
Yeah, I'm saying that's the last question. And well, I think that now that we are living the circumstances that we are using online learning environments for us to teach, is the best opportunity for us to enhance these skills. We should teach and guide our learners on aspects like, for example, how to manage their time. how to handle
Okay.
the materials that they have in the house for learning, how to perhaps handle their own and control their own behaviors in terms of learning, because now we don't have them face to face to monitor the work they are doing. So we need to trust on what they are doing, you know, and we need to help them also manage all those things. As I mentioned before, set routines, provide learners with guidance on how to live this moment in which now they don't have the teacher police next to them telling them when to do things and how to do things. Now they need to learn on how to do it. So this is a very nice opportunity to enhance reflection about how did they live their days, how did they organize their time, or how they are handling their time. How are they measuring if they are doing well, if they finish their homework or not? Perhaps the teachers now are not being able to check if they are doing things. So this is the right moment in which we can develop those
Okay.
skills.
I've got another couple of questions before we finish up. See, Angie Jaramillo says, what would be a great sample of an autonomous learner? In other words, what characteristics does he or she, what characteristics, oh, and I lost it, I go right here. What characteristics must he or she have? If you can maybe give us a couple ideas about that particular learner in the classroom. We've talked about a lot about it, but
yeah. Let's say that the highest level of autonomy is a student who comes to the class because you provide the chances, of course, telling you what he wants to learn, how he wants to learn it, when he wants to learn it, why he wants to learn it. And if this student changed his mind because of something, he's monitoring the work, and then he figures out that he doesn't need this knowledge anymore or this ability anymore that is already developed, then this student is going to change his mind, and you are there to provide help, to support, to provide guidance, to provide resources, to provide opportunities, to provide possibilities. But as we are talking about an environment, this is a whole environment. It is not only the ideal student, but it's also the ideal teacher that is providing the whole environment for the student to be like that. The institution providing also environments in which learners can be proposeful, can propose things, can express their opinion, and etc. You know, so it is not only the ideal student, which is very important to think about, but also the whole environment.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I think that we're pretty much out of time for the most part. Before I close up, just give you a couple of ideas for the most part. Today we talked about quite a bit about autonomous learning environments, trying to get to know the learner per se, trying to also get to better understand the environments and things that we need to do. Hopefully, if we left with anything today, we understand that we ourselves as practitioners, teachers in the classroom, we need to also understand ourselves what does it mean to be autonomous, because that trying to get our students to become autonomous starts actually with us, and by we ourselves getting things organized and getting things situated, we need to do this ourselves as well. Next week we're going to be talking about designing learning resources for online environments, just yet, okay? But once again, as a token of our appreciation, we would love to hear what you think about these types of sessions. Do we do more of these? How could we change the dynamics, the platforms, etc.? Would be great for us to hear about. Okay, we're going to be emailing you a short survey in that particular instance to get some ideas about what's going on. And as a token, like I said again, as one second here. One moment, just let me go ahead and just, I need to shut these down, mute everyone again. Thank you very much. So in addition to that, the idea is we want to get some ideas about what you guys think or feel related to what we're talking about, which would be great. Here's a quick survey. You can do it now or even in your email accounts. We're going to have that for you so that we can actually get some ideas, because feedback is important. These types of spaces and opportunities are designed for you, for us as well, to get to know, share experiences, get to know what's going on exactly, not just here in our Colombian classrooms, but all and throughout the regions per se, so that we can once again share and connect and do other things. But today we're going to be talking about autonomous learning environments. Next week, we're going to be talking a lot about what? Designing learning resources for online environments. Designing learning resources for online environments. That's going to be a great one. So keep in mind to get some ideas there as well. Once again, It was a pleasure to interact with each and every one of you. And like I said again, on behalf of, I should say, on behalf of the Department of Foreign Languages and Cultures, as well as the master's programs in English language teaching, we want to thank you once again for being here. Remember that we will be uploading the videos to our Unisavana fan page as well as our website. In the event, since you guys signed up for the event, we will be sending that information directly to your email accounts. We greatly appreciate your attention, and we hope that tonight's session was very productive in that particular instance. So once again, I want to tell you to stay tuned, yeah, and I see you guys next week for Designing Learning Resources for Online Environments, May 5th at 6 p.m., where we will continue the debate on what's going on in that particular instance, yeah. So thank you very much for what's going on. Thank you for your participation. I got some last minute questions came in. I won't be able to address them at the moment. Alejandro, I will stop the recording and we can talk a few minutes more and get some ideas there. Okay. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very
for
much.
everything.
See you.
Yes,
Bye.
we'll have the link.
See you.
The link will be sent to you, Judith. Once you register again, we will send you a new link so you get connected. Okay. Thank you so much. Yes. Have a great night.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much. The same
Thank
to
you
you.
so much.